the postpartum hemorrhage. Okay? Now, postpartum hemorrhage is going to be a scene change from the delivery to the postpartum setup. So we've taken out the rotation, we've taken out the final, we're going to take this out here. So go ahead and take that out. Out and down. Lift it up. Perfect. Now, we need to add in there the postpartum uterus over there. It's the one with the blue bag. We're going to add this in. We're going to move this up top so it will fit.
Look at this thing.
Yeah. All right, so we talked about this briefly, how this works, but we'll go over this. This blue hose here will be connected to this connection here. This will, through the compressor that's here, cause the inner bag, this piece right here, to kind of expand like a balloon. Currently, if they palpate through the thing, they'll feel the firm uterus. Okay? When this expands, they won't be able to feel that. So what we're going to do, and when we have this loaded, before we start the scenario, we let the students palpate through her abdomen and they can feel that firm uterus. Then you can set it up into the boggy condition and let them palpate and see the difference. And then we'll go through and run the scenario. So that's what happens with this blue hose. This clear hose here connects down here. So this red connector, these are red elbows, I think they ran out of them. It connects right in here. Okay?
Over that metal part?
No. It connects in
Where's the hole? Oh, there it is.
right there. Okay?
Oh, okay.
It connects in there.
Gotcha.
All right?
Got it.
We're going to put all this together. Now, an integral part of this whole system is we have the tank, which is we're going to talk about in a second. But in between the tank, which plugs in here, and a connection down here is a valve. This valve is controlled electronically. This valve is open to control the amount of vaginal bleeding. It has 4 different settings, from mild, moderate, severe, and profuse, which obviously will have increased blood loss in here. So the 2 things. Before I run this scenario, I want to make sure that this valve will actually work. Because when we were first developing this early on, sometimes what would happen, they would go out, they do a delivery and install it, and then it would be maybe a month or 2 or so before the clinician side come out and do the training. We found that sometimes what happens when water is sitting on that valve for a long period of time, the leaflets can kind of get stuck together to where they don't work. Which means that when you're telling the system to bleed, there's nowhere for the blood to go or the fluid to go because it can't get past this valve. And so what would happen is, this is the bleeding tank that goes inside her. Inside this tank is a bladder. This red part hooks into here, and this green part hooks in down here. Well, I'll show you the connections in a second. There is a bladder in here that's filled with water, which we're going to fill. When you fill it, you don't take this off because it's sealed in here. So in the situation where this valve doesn't open, the air pressure on here is squeezing on the outside of that bladder, but there's nowhere for that fluid to go. And so what can happen is you can get little tears in that bladder, such that instead of fluid coming out here, it starts dripping out here. So what I do to test this is to make sure the valve is working. I also use this to clean this up, because if you go into the user guide, it is a 3-page setup to clean this up. We're going to make this very quick. We're going to break it down into parts. We're going to show how to clean this quickly, how to clean this quickly, and how to clean this quickly. Part of this whole thing before I begin is testing this valve. So how do I do that? I borrow from over there the urinary fill tool. No, the urine fill tool. No, the one that looks at the syringe is, I see it over there by underneath the ring over there, I think it is. Oh no, sorry, it's right there by the cotton seed oil. The one we put urine into her. Perfect. Because this has all the connections. In other words, I'm gonna hook this, even though it normally goes into the yellow for the urine, I'm gonna hook it into here. I am gonna fill this syringe up with air, okay? Now, if I push on the syringe, it can't go out here because I know the valve isn't open because I haven't tried to make it open. So all that happens is air is gonna come back into here. Now, I can either keep my thumb over this or I can put a cap on here, okay? I prefer to use a cap. Now, this is nothing special about this cap. It's just like a regular IV cap, but I know she has one down here on the drain port. So I borrow it from the drain port, okay? Even with this, it doesn't go anywhere because the valve isn't open, okay? How do I open the valve? In the software, I go up to the gear. I go to system. I mentioned this yesterday, the maintenance tab. I click on here and I click on flush system and flush now. This opens the valve. So now, if I put air in my syringe, if the valve is working, I should be able to push it here. And it's actually coming out this part in here. You can see some of the fluid here. I use this for the cleanup also. When I'm done, I will take, let's say I use the food coloring in here. I would disassemble it. I would take a syringe full of distilled water. I would push it through here until what runs out of here goes from bright red to rosy pink to clear. That way I know all the food colorings out of the line, okay? Then what I do after that, I will take a few syringes of air to get all fluid out of the line, and in particular get all fluid off of this valve, such that the next time you come in here, you know it's going to open, because if it doesn't, it will cause this tank to rupture. All right, so we know the valve works. All right, so I can then come back in here and click on stop flushing. Okay, when I do that, it closes the valve. And so now it goes back to the point where I can't push any air in here, okay? Now, how would you know if this thing had leaked in here? Well, a couple of reasons, a couple of ways you would notice. One is when you take out the tank, thank you, you're gonna notice fluid dripping out of this tubing here. That's an indication that the tank is here is ruptured. If you see that when you fill it, don't use the tank. Call us, we'll send you another one. Where would this fluid go? Well, what happens is it goes through here, it comes out through this tubing, goes inside on the back side,